Hello everyone. We shall discuss on module 5, which is on digital signal processes. Now, what are we studying in this module? So, basically, we will be discussing three main topics. One is various DSP architectures and hardware units. Here, basically, we are discussing two types of architectures. One is von Neumann architecture, and the other one is Harvard architecture, and we'll be discussing its related hardware units. So we'll be discussing on fixed point and floating point formats, which we use in digital signal processors. And also, finally, we'll be discussing on FIR and IIR filter implementations in fixed point systems. Basically, we'll be taking up a simple transfer function or system function, and we shall use that system functions to realize it in direct form 1 and direct form 2 in terms of fixed point systems. The processor architecture, as I told you in the previous slide, so we will be discussing two types of processor architecture. One is von Neumann architecture, and the second one is Harvard architecture. Now, in von Neumann architecture, it was developed in 1946. So, basically, general microprocessors and microcontrollers are based on this von Neumann architecture. So, here the instructions are not hardwired, in the sense the instructions are basically numerical codes rather than special wiring. Instead of hardwiring the instructions, the operations where the instruction does, so we will be having numerical codes. General microprocessors based on von Neumann architecture looks something like this. So here the program and data memory are shared in a single physical memory, and data bus is also shared with program memory, program control unit, arithmetic unit, and input output devices. And the execution of the instructions is performed in a serial fashion, in the sense it will fetch the instruction first and then executes the instruction. Okay. What's the issue in this architecture? What's the issue in this von Neumann architecture? So as I told you in the previous slide, so it contains a single shared memory for both program as well as data. Okay, a single bus for memory access, arithmetic unit, and program control unit. Right. So single bus for memory access, program unit, arithmetic unit, and as well as input output devices. Okay. So the processor proceeds in a serial fashion in terms of fetching and execution cycle. In the sense, first it will fetch, it will perform the fetch cycle, and then it will perform the execution cycle. And since the processor is performing in serial fashion, it causes most units to stay in a wait state, which results in speed issues. Basically, while fetching, the execution cycle is waiting to fetch, right? So now to fetch the next instruction, so it is waiting for the execution cycle to complete, right? So most of the time it will waste its time by waiting in waiting state. Okay. Now increasing the speed of the bus, memory, and computational units can actually improve the speed because of this serial fashion, but not significantly. The speed which we require for digital signal processors, that won't be satisfied by increasing the speed of the bus, memory, and computational units. Okay. Now what is the solution for this? We have to switch to the Harvard architecture. Harvard architecture is built by IBM in 1944 at Harvard University, and this architecture meets the requirement of special features in digital signal processors such as fast Fourier transform operations, filtering operations, convolution operations, correlations operations, and block processing, etc. Digital signal processors based on Harvard architecture is something like this. It has a separate address bus for both data memory as well as program memory, and it has a separate database again for both program memory as well as data memory. And unlike in von Neumann architecture, here in Harvard architecture, we have a separate program memory and we have a separate data memory. To speed up the operation, we have dedicated multiplier and accumulator. We have shift unit, we have address generator, and these are all actually hardwired, in the sense it has a separate hardware unit to perform these operations. Now what's the specialty in this architecture? As we discussed in the previous slide, it has two separate memory spaces. One is dedicated to program code while the other is employed for data. To accommodate two memory spaces, two corresponding address buses and data buses are used. Now, program memory and data memory have their own connections to the program memory bus and data memory bus respectively. So it can fetch the program instruction and data in parallel at the same time. Since we have separate bus, so it can fetch the program instruction as well as data at the same time. Now there is an additional unit called as multiplier and accumulator, MAC unit, which is dedicated hardware used for the digital signal of the digital filtering operation. And the shift unit is used for the scaling operation for fixed point implementation when the processor performs digital filtering. In this slide, we'll be comparing executions of two architectures. That is, one is the von Neumann architecture and the other one is Harvard architecture. So as we discussed in the previous slide, in von Neumann architecture, so the fetch and execution cycles happens in a serial fashion, right? First it will fetch the instruction, it will decode the instructions, and according to the decoded instructions, this processor will execute that instruction. And during the execution, the processor will not fetch the next instruction. Instead, it will wait until the execution cycle is completed. The processor will fetch the next instruction only after execution cycle is completed, right? And this will continue until the program ends. Whereas in Harvard architecture, once the processor fetches the instruction, next it will decode the instruction and it goes to the execution cycle. Now during the execution cycle, since we have a separate bus and memory, the processor will fetch the next instruction. Okay, now once the processor is done with fetching the next instruction, immediately after the next cycle it will go to the execution cycle, right? And this will continue till the program ends, right? And the concept of execution and fetch operation happening parallelly is called as pipeline operation. We'll discuss in detail here in this slide. So basically we'll be having two cycles. One is fetch cycle and the other one is execute cycle. In fetch cycle obtains the opcode from the memory, and the control unit will decode the instruction to determine the operation. Whereas in execute cycle, based on the decoded information, execution will modify the content of the register or the memory. Once this is completed, the processor will fetch the next instruction and continues. The processor operates one instruction at a time in a serial fashion. So that's why von Neumann architecture is a bit slow. Whereas in Harvard architecture, the execution and fetch cycles are overlapped, and we call this pipelining operation. and the digital signal processor performs one execution cycle while also fetching the next instruction to be executed. Hence, the processing speed is dramatically increased. Now, we shall discuss digital signal processor hardware units. Uh, if we go back to our Harvard architecture, so we will be discussing these hardware units like multiplier accumulator, shift unit, and address generators individually in detail. Okay, let me come back to the MAC unit. So multiplier and accumulator, we call it as MAC unit. Okay, so to convince you this block diagram, let me take up one example with respect to correlation. So as we know, the correlation equation is Rxy of L is equal to summation n varying from minus infinity to infinity x of n y of n minus L. Right? Now when lag L is equal to 0, when I substitute L equal to 0 in this equation, what do I get? Rxy of 0. Rxy of 0 is equal to what? Summation n varying from minus infinity to infinity x of n y of n minus 0, which is y of n, right? So we have x of n as 1 2 3 4, and we have y of n as 1 minus 1 3 2 1. Okay, now without any lag, x of n is as it is and y of n is in that place only. So what we do is we take sum of product, right? When I say sum of product, what do you mean by that? 1 into 1 plus 2 into minus 1 plus 3 into 3 plus 4 into 2 plus 1 into 0, which we end up with 16, right? And this sum of product is happening in each and every output samples, right? uh, let's say when lag is equal to 1, when lag L is equal to 1, what do I get as Rxy of 1? It is summation n varying from minus infinity to infinity x of n y of n minus 1, right? When I say y of n minus 1, what do you mean by that? Y of n shifted right one time. So this sequence is shifted right one time, right? Once it is shifted right one time, so again I have to take sum of product, right? So 1 into 0 plus 2 into 1 plus 3 into minus 1 plus 4 into 3 plus 2 into 0 plus 1 into 0, which we end up with 11. So, and this has to be continued, right? Now let me go back to our MAC unit. So we have two registers in the MAC unit, X register and Y register. These two registers are to store the input samples, X of n and Y of n input samples. So this is basically a 16-bit register, and this 16-bit registers data, I mean the samples which the 16-bit registers contains is been multiplied in the multiplier, and this 16-bit when we multiply it, we end up with a 32-bit result, right? And with respect to the example, so this 16-bit and x of n, and this is stored in x register and this is stored in y register. Okay, and this 1 into 1 has been multiplied, right? So that's why we need this multiplier, so that for first sample of x of n and first sample of y of n has been multiplied, and that is stored with the that is added with the previous result. But in our case, previous result is 0, so it is just accumulated, right? This is just accumulated, and now this accumulated result is stored in the result register. Fine. Now when the next sample comes, in the sense, so when 2 and minus 1 comes, and that 2 and minus 1, so this 2 and y is minus 1 has been multiplied, and that has to be added with the previously stored result, right? And again when the next sample comes, that has to be multiplied and that has to be accumulated with the previously stored result. So basically that's what happening here, sum of product. Once all the samples are done, once all the samples are accumulated, that is stored in Rxy of 0, in the sense in the result register, okay, and this has to be performed each and every lag, right? Okay, so when we try to put it in a code, then it takes time, so that's why we have a separated dedicated hardware to perform this operation, and this hardware is called as MAC unit, and MAC stands for multiply and accumulator. Okay, a special hardware unit for enhancing the speed of digital filtering. What is that? MAC, right? And this is dedicated hardware, and the corresponding instruction is generally referred to as MAC operation. So in a typical hardware MAC, the multiplier has a pair of input registers, each holding 16-bit input to the multiplier. The result of the multiplication is accumulated in a 32-bit accumulator unit. The result register holds the double precision data from the accumulator, which I have explained you in this block diagram. One more hardware which we have in digital signal processor is shifters. So why do we require shifters? In digital filtering, to prevent overflow, basically overflow is the effect which we frequently occur in DSPs. To prevent this overflow effect, a scaling operation is actually required. And what do you mean by scaling operation? It is just shifting the bits left or right. Okay, so a simple scale down operation means shifting the data to the right, while a simple scaling up operation is shifting the data to the left. Now shifting data to the right is same as dividing the data by 2 and truncating the fractional part, whereas shifting data to the left is equivalent to multiplying the data by 2. So let me try to convince you with an example. As an example, for a 3-bit data word, so we have taken 0, 1, 1 in binary, whereas in decimal it is 3, right? Now if I shift this 0, 1, 1 to right by 1 bit, so what do I get? To the left 0, we have to add 0 to the left, and this 1 goes out, right? So we end up with 0, 0, 1. Now 0, 0, 1 in binary is what? It is 1 in decimal, right? So when, as we told you, shifting the data bit right by one time is nothing but dividing it by 2, dividing the given number by 2. Since this binary, the value of this binary equivalent to in decimal is 3, so if I perform 3 by 2, so what I get is 1.5, and if I truncate this 1.5, in the sense the fractional part which is 0.5, if I truncate it, which results in 1. Okay, so shifting the same number to the left, what do we have? So 0, 1, 1 I have. If I shift it to the left, what do I get? So 0 goes out, so 1 comes here, this one comes in the second place, and the 0 is appended to the right. So we end up with 110. So 110 in binary is equivalent to 6 in decimal, right? And as we told, shifting the bits to the left is nothing but multiplying it by 2, right? So that is nothing but what? 3 into 2, which we end up with 6. So we have the same number 6. So that's how we perform scaling up and scaling down operation using the shifters. Now DSP often shifts the data by several bits for each data word. So to speed up such operation, the special hardware shift unit is designed to accommodate the scaling operation. Next hardware unit in Harvard architecture is the address generator. In address generator, a special hardware unit for circular buffering is used. So in circular buffering, a data pointer is used and always pointing to the newest sample. So for example, if the samples are something like x of n is the oldest sample, next sample which we have is x of n minus 1, and next newest sample is x of n minus 2, next newest sample is x of n minus 3, and so on. So now the newest sample is x of n minus 7. When the new sample x of n minus 7 comes, now data pointer will shift to the newest sample. Okay, and now in x of n goes out, whereas x of n minus 1 occupies the x of n position, and this will continue. Okay, this is the basic concept of the circular buffering, but let me try to convince you in detail. The circular buffer acts like basically a first in first out buffer, but each datum on the buffer does not have to be moved. Only thing is we have to move the pointer, we have to update the pointer to the newest datum. Let me compare with the circular buffer and sequential buffer. Now the sequential buffer, this is a first in first out sequential buffer. The data flow is something like this: first sample A comes, next sample B comes, next sample C comes, and so on. Okay, Now the oldest data is A, next is B, next is C, and next is D, right? Now the new data, when new data comes, when E comes, so E comes to the Dth position, E comes to the Dth position, and D data is shifted below, and C is shifted below, and B is shifted below, right? So D is here now, C is here, and B is here. A is pushed out, right? Now the current data is pointing to the newest data. Similarly, when the next new data comes, which is F, now F occupies the E's position, and this E, D, C will be moved down, and this continues. So this is what happening in sequential first in first out buffer. Whereas in circular buffer, we don't have to move each and every data down when new sample comes. So what's happening here is the data pointer itself updated to the newest sample. Let me tell you how. So we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G as the data flow. So we have A here, oldest sample, new sample B, new sample C, and again new samples comes, which is D here. Now the pointer is pointing to the newest data, which is D, right? Whereas these C, B, A are all are past data. Okay. Now when new sample, which is E, comes, now this E, new sample E, occupies the oldest data. Now which is the oldest data? Oldest data A. So the E will occupies the 8th position, right? Now B and C, D remains there itself. B, C, D is remaining there. Only thing is the pointer which previously was pointing to D, now it is pointing to E. Now the past data is what? D, C, B, right? Now when the other new samples, which is F, comes, now that F is occupied by B's position. F is occupied by B position, and the data pointer is pointing to the newest data, which is F. Now these are all the past data, and this continues. Okay. Now the advantage in circular buffer is that instead of whenever the new sample comes, we don't have to move every samples down. We just have to update the pointer which is pointing to the newest data. Okay. So this is the advantage of circular buffer. The circular buffer acts like a first in first out buffer, but each datum on the buffer does not have to be moved, right? We just have to update the pointer. So it costs the pointer only one moment to update one datum in the one step, right? The first in first out has to move each of the other data down to let in the new one, right? So why we need the circular buffer? So in FIR filtering, the data buffer size each can reach several hundreds, right? Because the input sequence and impulse response will be very lengthy, right? So hence using the circular buffer will significantly enhance the processing speed. Now we shall take up one small topic which is on digital signal processors and manufacturers. Digital signal processors are classified as general DSP and special DSP. A general DSP processor is designed and optimized for applications such as filtering, correlation, convolution, FFT, etc. Whereas special DSP has features that are optimized for unique applications such as audio processing, compression, echo cancellation, adaptive filters, etc. So the major manufacturers in DSP industry are one is the Texas Instruments, and the other one is Analog Devices and Motorola. Texas Instruments and Analog Devices offers both fixed point DSP families and floating point DSP families, while as Motorola offers fixed point DSP families only. So this is about the DSP manufacturers. In the next videos, we will be discussing on fixed point and floating point DSPs.